Okay, you guys, you are in for a treat today. I'm sitting here with my new friend. We just decided we are soul sisters at this point. I'm sitting here with my new friend, Sazan Hendrix, and I am just, Sazan, I've been following you for ages, it feels like, and I'm so happy to have you on the show. Welcome to Girls Night.
Hey, girls. Stephanie, I'm so happy to be here with you. And I feel like this girls' night is our soul sister night. Like we are just, before we recorded this, we went in and just started talking about all things life. We actually have some things in common, like same literary agency, and just we have a lot in common, I've realized. So I'm just very excited that I'm here with all of you guys hanging out today. Thank you so much for having me.
It's fun because, like, seriously, right before we hit record, we were just talking about, like, you know, when you've walked a path and you can turn around and help someone who's behind you, like, it's such a, like, that's such a gift. And that's exactly what Girls Night is all about, is like, why would we make it so that we all have to figure everything out individually? Like, let's pool our resources and like divide and conquer here. And
amen.
So we were just talking about that.
Amen. Girl power.
Exactly. Okay, well, so tell us about, for women who haven't gotten to meet you yet, tell us who you are, what you do, and a fun fact about yourself.
Well, ladies, I am Sazan Hendrix, and I am a mother of 3 and a wife, first and foremost. And I love storytelling. And so somehow, some way, I landed into the world of content creation before it was even called content creator. 10 years ago, when I started sharing little bits and pieces of my daily life and the things that I loved. And at the time it was started as fashion and beauty. And then it evolved into lifestyle and marriage and, you know, homemaking. And then today it really is all of a culmination of all of those things as I'm kind of rediscovering who I am, what I love now that I'm, 6 months postpartum with my 3rd child. And I love my online fam. That's what I call them. So thank you guys for having me here. Hopefully some of you guys who are listening, if you have been a part of my journey, please, can you let me know if you're listening to this somehow, some way, go and find me on my Instagram, DM me, or maybe reshare this episode. I would love to just connect with some of you and hear maybe when you started following along, because I hear all kinds of things and it's always just so fun to see when our paths crossed.
I love that. That's so fun. Okay, tell me your fun fact.
Okay. Do you guys hear Oliver crying in the background, by the way? I promise I have not neglected him. He's back. He's in the living room with my husband, and my husband's probably like, okay, buddy, your mom is trying to do a little interview. So if you hear a little baby boy crying and screaming, that's why he's giving daddy a hard time.
He's not by himself. Yep.
He's not by himself. My fun fact is, y'all don't laugh at me. And I actually talk about this in my book very early on. So it's public information at this point. I actually can't ride a bike. I cannot ride a bike. What is wrong with me? I've never learned. Never.
You never learned?
Never learned how to ride a bike. But I really went through the season of my life where I was obsessed with indoor cycling classes. So I was like the number one, like front row girl kind of cycler. And my husband would literally see me walking out of these classes all sweaty, like feeling myself. And he's like, he would say, little do they know in there that you don't even know how to ride a real bike. Okay. Miss Queen of the Stationery. So I finally, my goal is to learn this year. And I think the reason I've held it off for as long as I have is because A, I had no desire for a really long time, but B, the past 5 years of my life, I have been either pregnant or having the kid and raising the kid. And so anytime I was in that mindset of like, ooh, I want to try something new, maybe I should learn how to ride a bike, I'd get pregnant again. And so I was like, well, I can't learn now. What if I fall off? You know what I mean? So I'm committed though. It's going to happen this year. I'm going to learn how to ride a bike. That's my fun fact.
This is the year of the bicycle. I love that. I don't know the last time I rode a bike. I feel like I would be wobbly. I know how to do it, but it's not like I've done it lately. So we'd probably
Do you have any tips for me? Like, it's really not that. I think I'm freaking myself out.
Yeah, you're freaking yourself out. You just gotta keep pedaling. That's what keeps you upright. So you can't go slow. The faster you go, I think the easier it is.
Okay,
but that's
great.
a weird thing. Well, you're gonna have to let us know how it goes. I love that.
Okay, I will.
Well, okay. So you told us a little bit about this, but I would love to hear, I'm always so curious about people's stories because I feel like they always have twists and turns and like, I thought I was going to do this and then that's not what happened, but what happened was really cool and just perfect for me. And, all of the other thing is that I think that we see someone who's successful and we just assume that they like woke up one day and that's how they woke up one day and it just happened. And that's never true. So I would love to hear, tell us like what your career has looked like, what your career story is.
Yeah. 10 years ago, Stephanie, when this started, there wasn't very many, there were definitely bloggers out there, especially European. There was a lot of like style bloggers and things that I had looked at and I thought, wow, how did they get to where they are? There's no way I can compete with that, right? Like it doesn't matter where you start in your journey. There is always going to be comparison creeping over you, discouraging you. And that just kind of invites fear and doubt and worry. And then ultimately what happens? We don't go for it. We don't press go on some of these dreams that are just living in our hearts because of, I think, that fear of failure and the fear of the unknown. So with a path like social media and the whole influencer thing, before it was even named that, was when I started. I was looking, at the time, I was looking to pursue a career in like broadcast journalism. That's what I got my degree in when I was studying. You did too? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I think we kind of brought it to good use, our degrees. Cause look, we're like kind of like you're interviewing.
We are speaking into microphones. Yes.
Storytelling.
Listen, we did it.
Yeah. And so while like we didn't end up doing that thing, it's been a thing that's helped fuel this thing that we're doing now. Right. So I think for me, I thought it's going to be this one really straight path. Like I'm going to get my degree. Then my plan is to go out to Los Angeles from Texas and I'm going to really give it my all, like they say. Especially back then, it was like you had to live, breathe, eat, sleep your dreams in entertainment if you wanted to succeed as like an entertainment reporter. And so I was really dreaming of the red carpet vibe life, the Juliana Rancic, Ryan Seacrest era. That was kind of where my eyes were fixated on like this vision that I had for myself was like, oh, I want to fit that. And so I thought, okay, I have what it takes. So the confidence got me to LA. But as soon as I got there, oh my gosh, I was totally that small fish in a really big pond that is Hollywood and Los Angeles. And while I felt like I had made all these connections in Dallas at the time, and I had this great network, there was something that was just like a hard smack in the face with reality when I went to LA. But I just felt like, you know what? I'm not going to just go home. I didn't pack up my whole life just to come here. So I said, realistically, my bank account, I can probably only give it maybe 6 months to a year out here. You know what I mean? Because I was really like living on my sister's couch. And I knew that, okay, it's expensive to be out here. And let's be real. You've got to make money in order to stay here. And so I said, I'm just going to give it my all. 6 months, undivided. I'm doing this. And so little doors were opening here and there. But when it's like you get these little opportunities that seem really cool on the outside, like these little gigs I would do, but they ended up being like, you'd be pulling these all-nighters and I would do these internships. And I was like, really like, burning it out of both ends. Like, and I just was like, oh my gosh, like this is a lot and I'm not even making any money. I was doing side jobs, trying to make ends meet. Like, I just was like, what is this life? What is this? What everybody does? Like, and so when doors weren't opening the way that I had imagined, I hit that 6-month mark and I just started freaking out a little bit and I just got really discouraged. And I said, what's the point? Why am I here? Why do I feel like God called me here for a reason, but it's not going according to my plan? And that's when I think I finally came to the end of myself, which was one of many times and every day, really. I realized the power of in coming to the end of yourself, because in that moment, when I think for me, when I came to the end of myself, it was literally like on my hands and my knees, like crying in the bathroom floor of my sister's little apartment in LA. And I had this real moment with myself. And I was like, I really feel like I have a lot of like energy in me. Like I have this vigor and this heart and this passion to like, to tell stories and to do entertainment and style. And I love it, but nothing's opening for me. Is it because I'm not good enough? I'm not pretty enough. I don't look the part when I would walk into these auditions. Like, what is it? And why can't I seem to figure it out? And I literally felt this surrendering of like, lay it down. And when I laid down this kind of like control that I was trying to possess over my path, that's when I really felt this soft whisper. And that we all know is like, of the Holy Spirit. And it was literally God's voice telling me, in the sweet way that we know when God speaks into your spirit. It was like, it was basically like, you're going to go this route. It felt like he was showing me a different road. And I said, what? I only was looking at one road. And that other road, the only thing I saw on it, I was like, what other road? The only thing I could see on it was this little blog that I had at the time. And it was just this little hobby thing that I was using to help my career in entertainment. So isn't that funny how it all started, right, with a dream that then I felt like I had to lay down, and then God kind of, I don't know, he reignited that dream in a whole beautiful new way. And honestly, the rest is history, because once I kind of obeyed that calling, I kind of picked myself back up and said, all right, it's time to roll up my sleeves and figure this whole thing out, because I don't have the moving parts to, if you do A, then you go to B, and then you go to C, like some career paths have in place, those markers. So instead it was like I had to create the A, and then I had to make a bunch of mistakes in the middle, and then this and that, and then create B, and then get to C. And so that was life over 10 years ago in the digital social media world, which then led me to do YouTube videos, and I loved editing content. That's what I learned in college. And so today, now it's become my little mini, my little mini dreamland empire that I've been able to build alongside my husband. And it's my favorite thing that I get to be myself for a living. And I think that's just been the greatest blessing from above, because I didn't pick this path. I really didn't. And I landed here, and it just has, all the doors started opening because it was just like the right thing. You know what I mean?
I love that so much. And we really do have so much in common. I love that. I love that. That's so, my favorite thing that you said is that you get to be yourself for a living. And that's, I totally feel the same way. If my goals, if my path hadn't gotten totally rerouted, I would have been doing news, which I think is just such an important job, but it just wasn't right for me in a whole bunch of different ways, and it just would have been a really different path for me. And this one is so much better, but I am getting to use the things that I wanted, the skills and interests that I had in the beginning, but in a different way. And I love it.
And I think, now that I'm 34, I started this journey when I was like, gosh, well, I was doing a bunch of internships and stuff, thinking it would help the whole entertainment path. And so I started doing those at like 19, 20. I'd take little opportunities to travel to New York and do some of those like blood, sweat, and tears jobs. So it allowed me to learn. And then once I got to that stage of like, okay, I think I want to do my own thing and start building this little blog, I never in a million years dreamed that it would become anything, because I think I didn't know how. I didn't know how to do it. And so sometimes we discourage ourselves because we don't necessarily know how. But when you know your why, you really figure out your how along the way. And so I think we're living in a generation today where I look at Gen Z, the generation behind me, and I see them as like little sisters, because if I could talk to them and tell them anything from what I learned in my 20s, it was that, today I feel like people are a little bit more shy to take risks because everything is so public. And you do see a lot of people to your left and your right pursuing career paths, and you see, Susan to your left, who she posts one thing on social media as this blogger, and bam, it skyrockets. Or you see this person to your right who has this really amazing dream house that you wanted for yourself. It's really easy to compare yourself and get lost in that. And then it ultimately deters you from pressing go on your own dream. So I just would encourage anyone and everyone who's just listening to this right now and is like, okay, well, how do you know whether or not to pursue something, or whether or not to maybe I need to lay it down? I would just encourage you to go where you feel the most at ease, and what feels like where peace follows you. There's times where there's a difference between hard work. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy work, but there's a peace that it feels like the wind's in your sails. That peace to me feels like it's a divine piece of the puzzle that is necessary when you have a big dream. The bigger the dream, the bigger the risk, and the bigger, I think, the divine intervention that you're going to need in your sails. So trust that where peace follows you, continue to go. And when you start to feel like, I feel like I'm at a dead end right now with this whole thing. I invested this much money, or I spent a lot of time at this. I would say, and for me, I'm high functioning. So like, instead of me stopping and completely taking a step back, I sometimes push harder. And I've seen how the Lord has used that to get me to be still and to see that like true faith is at rest. And if I'm going a million miles per hour, I'm not giving the divine, right, the opportunity to come in and surprise me and to show me what he can do through me and with me. And so go where you're going to feel at peace. And if you're not feeling at peace right now about something that you've started, it doesn't mean to throw it in the wastebasket in your heart. I just think it means like you need to take a step back, and instead of focusing on the perfection of your heart, focus on the direction. And it is okay sometimes to slow down. It is okay sometimes to say, I'm going to take the exit right now, and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to take a break. I mean, we all, I think, need those pit stops in the journey as we are building and as we're growing and we're fueling these God-given desires and talents and dreams in our heart.
Okay, so if this is helpful for anyone else, great. But this is for me. So really glad, really glad you guys.
I feel like I'm preaching to myself too, because I still feel like, girl, I'm still figuring it out. There is no I've arrived. Can we just be real?
Yeah.
There's no, and I mean, you'll agree with me, right? Because like you've created this whole world of yours, which is amazing. And I bet some of your listeners are like, man, I wish I could have a podcast like Stephanie. And like, she really seems to like have it all figured out. And she seems to be so poised and makes it look so easy. But if only people knew, right? It's like behind the curtain. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of challenge every day. And just know that I say that to encourage you, not to defeat you. It's to know that like people like Steph and me, we too in the journey every single day, I feel like I'm like, oh God, I failed today. Or God, I need grace. I need more grace. I just, every single day is like, you never feel like you've arrived.
No.
Yeah, you're never going to have that sense of I've arrived at the top of the mountain. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love what you said about the wind in your sails. I want to like dive into the idea of peace a little bit further, because I find, and we've been talking about this on the show lately with like a new kind of corner of the internet that we've opened up. It's this shop that I've been dreaming of forever, and it's officially called the Girls Night Gift Shop, and it's
Cute.
like matching shirts for you and your friends, and best friend gifts, because I always find those to be really hard to find, and so, but it's been this dream that I've had for like my whole life, really, and then something that I've been working on for the last like 18 months or so. But when I really started to press go on it, I just was so in my head and got so nervous. And and I find that to be true with basically everything that matters that I do. The second I put it out there, I feel like this is trash. I am trash. Everything is trash. I must hide. The vulnerability hangover is like immediate for me. And so I would just love to hear your thoughts on like how to know when like this thing you're doing is just scary and you just got to keep going versus that or like, how do you know when it's just, you need to keep going because this thing is just scary versus there's no peace here?
You know what?
Change directions.
I'm going to start by saying, personally for me, now what you might see on the outside is like, oh, wow. If nobody ever knew who I was, right? Which is, I feel like a lot of people, most people. But when they go to my Instagram, right, you see 1.2 million followers, and she's got a book, and she's got, she's done these collaborations with these brands and all of these things. Like, you immediately can look at that and you can think like, oh my gosh, like, I bet like this was an overnight thing. And for me and for some people it is. Like, we saw in the COVID pandemic era that there was a lot of like overnight sensations that popped up through TikTok and stuff. For me, since the very beginning in this 10-year journey, I feel like it has been a very slow drip. Some seasons I had more wind in my sails and I felt like, ooh, there's so much opportunity. I look back and I'm like, should have capitalized on that. Instead, I was so hard on myself that I didn't do certain things. But I try not to do that, because then it creates the whole regret thing. And then you get in your own head about that. That's a whole nother topic. But what I will say is that I've learned in my own journey, whether I'm trying to sell a product for a brand and they're paying me and I want to see it perform, I want to see it do well, and I want people to love the product. I've seen times where those things have flopped. Womp womp. Nobody clicked it. Nobody. And you see that and you're like, oh, that like makes me feel really crappy. And I feel like it makes me look bad to the people that believe in me, whether it's my followers or these brands that are investing in me. But the truth is like this whole, whether you're an influencer or not, or anything that is I say self-made, but really like anything that like God has created you to do, you have to know like it is a marathon and not a sprint. And if you think that like you're going to have the Kylie Jenner effect, which is in 10 minutes, you sold 1 million product, or heck, let's say in 10 minutes, you got 100 people even. I mean, 50 people even. Like, why are we creating these benchmarks for what success has to be and what it has to look like? And I think sometimes we bottleneck ourselves and we get in the way because of those false and unrealistic expectations that for some reason Western society and culture has fixated upon. Because when I go to Switzerland, like for example, it's one of my favorite places on the planet. When I go there and I walk into one of the most cutest, coziest, beautiful little like shop, like there's a little shop where it's like they make, wool vests and things. I walk in there and I can't help but think like, this is such a small operation here. This is a little mom and pop thing, but they love it. And they are so invested in it for the right reasons. And while they may not be making $1 million in sales, that's not always the goal. I think when you just like can stay the path and focus on your direction instead of perfection, I believe like a seed that you put in the soil, it's going to take time before you can harvest. It's going to take seasons where you're going to dry out, seasons where you're not tending to it enough or as much. It's the same thing with like your shop or your product or your dream. Stevie actually says this analogy way better than me, and I'm going to try, but he said this and it's really amazing. Is he spoke to somebody who's like a wine connoisseur, and the analogy was basically like you would think that the wine, there's a whole process when it comes to making wine, getting it to the point where it pours into your glass and you say cheers. The before that, some of the most delicious wine, that those specific grapes, they actually have to go through a lot more hardship in order to be able to ripen and make wine. And so they're actually in very hostile environments, and they're very, very picky, and they're very like, it's really hard and it takes longer, but it ends up producing the most delicious fruit, literally, and in your cup. And it's like, we need to think about ourselves in that way. We need to think about our dreams that way. And I know I'm blabbing on, but you're speaking my language right now because, Stevie and I are in a season right now where I feel the same way as you. Anytime you create something new, you feel so vulnerable. And for us, we just wrote, and launched our book, A Real Good Life. And that's the first, I think, out of all the work we've ever done, it really is the most special piece of work I've ever done, probably the most important. Because why? It took us 5 years to actually be able to finally put pen to paper and to bring it to life. And so many times when you want to throw the towel in, or you're like, this is not going anywhere, I have writer's block, you wonder, is this ever going to come to life? Are we ever going to see the day? And then the day comes. And then you're like, wait, I didn't anticipate that I'd be feeling all of this like anxiety and like, I'm worried now. Does that mean I made a mistake? No, I think that type of jitter is because you care so much about what you've produced, that you have a healthy human side of you that's like, what if people don't respond or don't like it, or it doesn't reach as many people? But if you can reach one person through something that you can create on this earth, just think about how much good you're adding into the world. There's so much white space for each and every single one of us. And so just imagine, I told Stevie, if one person ends up reading our book and one person's life is transformed by our message, and then one day when we get to heaven, we get to see that person and they say, you know what? Your book actually changed my life, or it's a big part of the reason I'm here today. I have a feeling when I get to heaven, I would feel like, whoa, this is amazing. Job well done on earth, you know?
Yeah.
So I think instead of us thinking larger than life, let's just think really tiny, little, bite-sized and just pace ourselves, you know?
I love that. I love that so much. And that's something that I thought about a lot when I first started my blog. I thought, if I can like speak into one person's life, if I can help one person, like that's it. And then everything else is just sprinkles, from
Yeah,
there.
extra credit, extra
Yes,
credit.
totally. But it is really easy to it's easy to like lose sight of that, especially when you're doing something that you care about that requires a lot of vulnerability and a lot of time. Like your book took you 5 years, and I think when we are so vulnerable, we want like extra affirmation in something. And so even if it's like from God, we're like, okay, God, like, am I on the right path here? And it feels like the only way it's a yes is if you do have the Kylie Jenner effect on something. It's like you put something out
I
into the world
know.
and it explodes into rainbows.
Yes,
That is
that's
that's
so
the
rare.
only version of affirmation. It's like, no, I think that doesn't need to happen for something to be right or for something to be good or for you to be called to do something. It really could be one person's life being better for having read your thing or seen your thing, or whatever your thing is. One person's life being better is enough.
And you know what's crazy too is like if you look at anyone who is like your idol or just somebody that you look up to, okay? If you look at Jennifer Aniston before she was Rachel on Friends, you are going to see that for like a decade, she had been really going after this whole acting thing and nobody really knew her really that at the time. I think so often we look at people's success stories and the highlight reels of their lives that we actually don't realize that it either they do a really good job at making it seem like things are all perfect and fancy and great and successful, but most of the time the people who have reached milestones in their dreams and like have had those wow factor effects, it's a lot of like it took them a long time to get there or it took them a bunch of failure to get there. And I think that's what makes those little moments when you do get there that much sweeter. Like if somebody handed me on a platter 10 years ago and said, here, you can be the host of E! News. Like you can be the Juliana Rancic. Here you go. Just imagine what my path would have looked like. I would have never felt the motivation or the fire up my butt to go and pursue something of my own. And I definitely wouldn't be living the life that I live today, which it's not an easier life. But I think if we do the hard things now, life does get easier and success will follow when you are so obedient to the calling that I feel like God has for your life. And for me personally, it's really hard as a believer, but also somebody who genuinely cares about just people in general, like all religion aside, it's just about relationship. And so I just care about everyone. And so sometimes that's my double-edged sword is like I care what they think and I want to serve and I want to do it well. And am I doing a good enough job? Am I really representing for women like what I feel like God wants me to be? Like I can be so hard on myself. And I think what I've learned, if anything, through the process of writing this book and honestly launching this book during a war starting out into the world like that we didn't predict 7 months prior when we were, marketing the strategy behind this book. I think what I realized was that, God has a plan, whether or not I'm in the boardroom, of my life in that meeting. Like he has a plan for my life. And it's just a matter of like, do you want to show up today? Are you going to walk into the game plan? And instead of me getting so distracted by looking to my left and my right and some of the numbers sometimes that we get caught up in with other people's success and hustling harder and doing the most. I mean, when I was living in Los Angeles at this time, I had started building my blog to a point where it had gotten pretty good attention, where I was able to be in the same room as like certain A-list celebrities. I was getting invited to those parties and those things, quote unquote, that help you network and build your persona and all the things that LA sometimes brings. I remember walking into an event and I'm telling you, every A-list celebrity is just passing me by. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so-and-so. Or, and I literally saw like Kylie Jenner. I said, we're talking about her. That's why it popped up in my head. But like you see Kylie Jenner and I saw Kendall Jenner and Kim and, these people that are just people, And when I walked into this event with all these celebrities and their fancy dresses and their nice jewelry and all that, I was in that moment where I always wondered, what would it feel like to be amongst the elite and to be here? And in a sense, in that moment, I was like, well, I was invited here. So in a way, I kind of have arrived, I think, right? But when I was in that moment, I felt this emptiness waiting for me there. And it was this realization for me, realizing like, when you think about a good life or the good life, as Kanye West raps about, that is a life where Western society has really built this fixation on self-pursuit and that you have to chase the next thing and the next thing. You have to hit this milestone. It's very performative. It's success. If you want the big house, the nice cars, the good life is like fancy things. And while that's okay to have nice things, what I realized in that moment at that event was that I think I'm missing the real thing. I think a real good life, not the one that's advertised to us on billboards and things. I think I realized early on, like, I think a real life is like really like loving where you are right now in your life, like despite not being where you want to be. And also not missing out on what's right in front of you, like the relationships and the friendships and life, actual life. Like, was I living life in that season? No, I was just hustling and chasing and trying to build and grow. And so I forgot that while there's this cool life out here dangling, I got a small enough taste of that life where I was like, I don't want that. And I really was glad that God sort of allowed me to get a little peek through that glamorous lifestyle and fantasy land, because when I got there, I had realized this feels really empty. And I think we all wonder, Jim Carrey said it best. He said, I wish everyone could be rich and famous so that they realize that that's not it, And I just feel like for me, I've had to check myself over the course of these past 10 years so many times on that. And motherhood and being a mom, now living back in Texas, that really woke me up. Being a mom saved me. It really did. God used my kids to show me that like, this is one childhood that they get. And it's like, am I going to show up and am I going to be here for them? Or am I going to continue to go and hustle? Because success, one of my friends, Dawn Cherie, she said, what if success isn't about going higher? Like, what if success is actually about going lower? I mean, that totally flips everything we've ever learned in America upside down. But going lower, meaning like reaching out to those people that are in your life, reaching out for the things that are right in front of you. God has given every single person listening to this podcast right now, He's given you, Stephanie, and me, all really a unique toolbox of gifts, of resources. And your toolbox looks different than mine, but it doesn't mean that like, just because you may have more hammers or screws in yours and mine looks like, doesn't mean that our toolbox is not good enough and it's not magical enough to do some amazing things. So just try to appreciate what's in front of you. And so our book, A Real Good Life, it really doesn't, it's not going to teach you anything that you don't already know, but we are going to explore like what it means to genuinely and authentically live this life that I'm talking about right now. Because it's a life where I feel like is nowadays just being forgotten about, and people are waking up and realizing, hold on, this is crazy. Like my kids grew up right before my eyes, or I was chasing this thing for so long that I missed out on the beautiful friendships in front of me. And I think there's a few people that we probably all need to text and catch up with, And so I just hope that this message, if it's encouraging anybody, that we would continue to have this conversation, because I could talk about it all day, every day. And that's why I finally put pen to paper and talked about it in the book. But what a timely message. And I think we need our generation to really hear this, because we're going to miss out on the real thing if we don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about kind of what it's looked like in your day-to-day life, like specifically with like your routines or your life rhythms, to put legs to this. Like
Yeah.
what does it look like to put legs to this in
Yeah,
your actual life?
that's such a great question. It's a bunch of things. And I'll start by saying, like, a lot of anyone and everyone will share their morning routine with you. Like, you can go on Instagram right now as the whole hashtag. You can literally go, right? But that, to me, what I've seen and I've read books about, it's like, okay, so like that works for you, but like, what does that mean? Like, if I do that exact thing, then I'm going to have a good life. So there is a little bit of, yes, there's the practicality and like the importance of a morning routine. But I believe there's this big chunk of blank space. It's a canvas. And I believe that what you and I need to do, if you really are like, okay, I want to put legs to this, you have to stop where you are right now. Okay. Just like stop in your life. I mean, if you're driving, don't actually stop. But like if you kind of have to stop where you are in the season of life that you are, and you've got to be brutally honest with yourself. You need to have that real coming to the end of yourself moment where you start to look at everything that you've done. Like if you turn around, okay, whoa, I'm stopping for the first time. Whoa, I've been really going hard on this project. And that like really acknowledge first and foremost everything that you have up to this point. And then what I want to encourage everybody to do is to visualize, like, what does your real good life look like? It's okay to have vision. God gives us that ability for a reason. It's like, if you had to audit your life today, what are some of the mountains that you can draw and say, like, all right, these are probably 3 big major mountains in my life that I need to conquer because they're getting in the way of this life that I want to live. And so if one of those mountains, for example, for you could be like, I'm having a really hard time right now parenting my kids, that's a mountain. What are the other mountains? It's another challenge in your life. So it's something that I do, and I sit with myself and I do this exercise. I say, okay, me and Stevie have just been passing each other by, my husband and I, in this season of life with 3 kids. And it doesn't feel good and it doesn't feel right. So I like put that as a mountain. And then I look at like my personal health mountain and I'm like, well, I haven't eaten like crap lately or whatever. And it's not you like nitpicking yourself and being your worst critic, but it's that 1 hour or so where you can be super real with yourself. You can do whatever you want with that pity party time of yours, but just be real. And when you visualize the life that you want, I believe that you have to tackle some of these mountains before you can actually get to that good that you're visualizing. But it doesn't mean that you can't love your life today and where you are right now. So for me, I love the idea that in this book, we have made it very simple to help people navigate, because life is that's a broad topic. So we took a 24-hour day span, and we're using stories and narratives, but also practical approaches in this book where we take a 24-hour day and we split it up into 4 phases of the day. So in the morning hour, we talk about reflection. In the midday, which is when we're all running around like chickens with our heads cut off, trying to get things done, drop kids off at school, pick them up. That hour is for focus. And then we get into the evening hour, which is gather. For me, I see that as 5 o'clock, like time to turn it off. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into your nighttime routine, and that is rest. And we talk about how all of those things, I believe, are a fabric of our in our good life. It's one good day at a time is, I think, what ultimately helps kind of build your good life. It's like a good life starts with just that one day, and those days become an extension in your good life. So that's where we've kind of really gotten a little bit more not strategic. That's one of my favorite words, but like a little bit more intentional, I guess you can say, in this book versus when you go on my Instagram and you get little fun videos and things like that. I feel like this book is probably the most valuable piece of content because I really did need to think about it and write it out and actually put it to the test and see, like, how does this work for me? And I can actually go through the book today and actually feel like it's helping me alongside the current season that I'm in. So you can pick it up at any point and start where you are. And I feel like it's just going to help you in your journey as you're cultivating your good life.
I love the idea of breaking up the day like that. I find that there are so many tabs open in my brain at any moment, and honestly on my computer.
Same.
We were I was with some friends recently and they saw my desktop and they were like truly shocked, I think, appalled at how many things are just like littered on my computer desktop. And my husband didn't even like blink. He just was like, I know, I know.
Oh
I
my
know.
gosh. You know what? My friend did this to me one time that I did that. That was my laptop. You know what he did? He copied every single thing on the desktop and put it into a folder that said like open me and clean up or whatever. So like my desktop looked really clean, but then when I clicked the folder, it was the messy desktop again. And I was like, oh, you said you were going to help me clean it out. And I get what you did. You just put it all into a folder.
You
we
just
didn't actually address
shoved it under the bed.
Exactly.
Yes, you shoved it under the bed. But like that's what my brain is like because I'm like moving so fast. I have so many things going on, and something that really, really helps me is to compartmentalize and to say like, this is what this moment is about. This is what this hour is about. This is what this day is about. And when I can really focus like that, I feel like I'm so much more present for the thing that I'm working on. I get so much more done. I'm so much better in my relationships when like my phone is off, I'm with you. You know, I'm totally here. But I need that. I really, really need that. Otherwise, I can be in a bazillion different places at once and not ever really anywhere. And so I love the idea of like, you said reflection, focus, gather, right?
Yes. Gathering.
Gathering and rest. And like, I feel I'm going to think about that tonight as I'm going to bed. And as my brain is trying to get me to focus on something else or gather, you know, I'm texting friends before I go to bed or something, and to just be like, you know what, this is a moment to rest. Tomorrow, there will be time to reflect and focus and gather. But right now, this is all about rest.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's so good, Stephanie. I mean, before I had my kids, I was that nighttime owl where I could be editing videos, and I find like the nighttime hour, it feels really, I don't know, it's quiet. Like my inbox is not beeping. There's not as many text messages coming through. I'm always motivated at night to work sometimes. And then my husband's the opposite. He's like morning, early before the sun comes up kind of thing. But I'm not in the morning. Good luck. I'm just so foggy. I've always been that way. But I've found that like now that I have kids, they get a lot of my time, right? Between like I've had to reassess, and it's hard because I still love being awake at night because now it's my me time and time with my husband when our kids go down. But what Stevie and I have learned is like not every single night do I like watch a show with Steve. Like there are nights in marriage where we have our own individual time. And so what we do for ourselves is if it was one of those days, and let's face it, no matter how much you follow all the little tips and advice in this book, you are going to have probably a continuum of days where things are going to go wrong. You did 3 things right, 50 things went wrong. And it's like, if you ever have one of those days where you're having that hard day, maybe your kid kept you up all night like mine last night. I definitely have realized that it's okay to do what I call a power hour. I love power hour, and I actually get a lot done. If you're scattered like me, Stephanie, mentally, what you can do is like set an alarm on your phone for 1 hour. Maybe it's the hours of like 7 to 8 p.m. And it's this time that you're saying, okay, 1 hour of me trying to get as many things done that I can that I've just put on my to-do list that I can actually get done quickly. So my power hour happens. And for some reason, when I hit record on my alarm, something goes off in me where it's like, I'm not going to be distracted by Instagram or the tabs on my laptop, going on Amazon. Like I actually have a list that I keep on my phone all throughout the week. And this to-do list, real talk, it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And I'm like, oh my God, how many things have I checked off? None. So my power hour time is the time when I go 3 days a week. I usually have a power hour, and then I go into that list and I just say, I'm going to get as many things done. There's been nights where I have gotten everything done in that 1 hour because I can be pretty efficient when I'm focused, I've learned, but I don't give myself that time where it's like, okay, this is 1 hour, ready, set, go. And so Stevie does it too with me on the couch, and he'll do his own thing. And sometimes he'll say, I'm going to go out and make a fire and have my cigar and do my me time. I'm like, you go ahead, boo. Okay. So like in that 1 hour, when the timer goes off, it's done. Yeah, I could keep going because then now I have a high. I'm like, oh, this is fun. No, you have to say, that's it. That was my power hour. And I've had to do that because I'm in a season where I have 3 kids and I'm still growing and I'm still managing a business that I care about. And so I have to find the pockets of time that make sense for me. And in this season, that 1 hour, it makes sense. So do your power hour, you guys. And when the power hour timer goes off, go and be with your significant other. Go and watch that show. And guess what? You're going to enjoy that show so much more because you were like, I just got so much done in this 1 hour that I spent in my final evening hour because I needed to do this for myself. Yeah. And I found that that's been my little recipe for getting things done in this current season because it's hard. It's hard to just do it during the focus hour of that day. And that's okay. You can swap things if you need to throughout your day in a good life, you know?
I love that so much. I've been doing something similar when it comes to things that I don't want to do or things that I'm like having a hard time getting my butt in the seat to focus and like really work. If like, especially if I'm writing something and there are moments where you're really inspired. There are moments where you just have to show up and do it. And I feel like the more I know that I have to just show up and do it, the more I don't really want to. And so setting an alarm and being like, I don't have to get this done. This doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to like actually check anything off the list. If it's like a bigger project, I'll be like, I'm going to give this 2 hours or I'm going to give this 1 hour and I will set my alarm. And it's like, this will be 1 hour better by the time I'm done. Like in an hour, this will be 1 hour better. It's not that it's done. But a lot of like, when you add them up, those hours turn into a lot. And I love the idea of especially the little things where it's like, it kind of eats at you. Like I think I have some cavities that like they told me last time I went to the dentist, they're like, you're going to need to get these filled sometime soonish. Right. Like that was like a little too long ago. And so I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, I need to make that appointment.
Yes, draft those emails. And it doesn't mean you have to send them out at that hour, but you can schedule them and just get it done. I hate my inbox actually. And that's one of the things that sometimes I do in my power hours. I solely get my inbox down to 0 every day. And that's something that I have to do in my power hour. So that during the day, that energy should be spent towards being a creator. Cause like I have found that during the day, when you actually have good lighting, that's when I need to be actually creating the content and things like that. But it's like really hard if I'm sitting on my couch working on the business, you know what I mean? Instead of in the business. Yeah. And so I can get really like, it's like when you work for yourself, you're constantly like going back and forth. And then you realize, man, me as the things that I love that are in my excitement zone, those things are taking a back seat because right now I'm in my drudgery zone of having to manage my business. I'm having to do the behind the scenes legwork to bring some projects to life. And it's okay to, allocate time for those things, but do it when it's convenient. And sometimes for me, I know I'm not going to shoot content at night. So like, let me get back to those emails and schedule those emails at night so I can be the creator that I want to be during the day, And so finding those rhythms in your day that make sense for you is really important. And if anyone listening, there's this dream that's been in your heart and you're like, you know what? I've been wanting to do this whole side thing. I've wanted an Etsy shop or whatever that thing is, see it as like, there's 24 hours in a day and we've got 7 days in the week. And while you may have a real, right, pay the bills job, find I would say 5 hours a week where you can, you have your hours that you thrive in your job where you're making money, but you should create some hours in your week where you can strive. Those are the things that haven't come to life yet. They're just kind of in the background. You keep thinking about it when you're driving. You keep talking about it with friends. Put pen to paper and find those 5 hours a week. Maybe you don't have 5 hours a week. Maybe it's 2 hours a week. 2 hours a week towards watering the seed for something that you're kind of really excited about is a lot better than not watering it at all. And those 2 hours add up. And in 6 months' time, you've put in hours, you've put in work. And so just start by slowly every day, finding little pockets of time to fuel the things that are important and to also get the things at hand that just need to get done with a power hour.
Yep. I think that's probably one of my biggest lessons from the last year is just everything takes time. And that we like you plant a seed, you don't get to eat that fruit right away. You just don't. It takes time. And so like thinking, I've been working backwards a lot. Like, what do I want to be happening in a year? What do I need to plant today in order to make that happen? And it works with everything. It's with your friendships. Like if a year from now you want to have really thriving friendships, okay, well then you need to like, what do you need to plant now in order to have that in a year? Well, like you probably need to text a friend or like get a coffee date on the calendar or like,
yes,
it's small step today. A series of small steps for a year is going to turn into something really great. But it doesn't happen really overnight, you know?
Yeah. And for me, I think about like, for me, my childhood, like I said at the beginning of this episode, I don't know how to ride a bike, but it's because like my mom, she didn't know how to ride a bike. Like she never like thought, oh, I should teach you how to ride a bike. So for me as a mom, I have found my own, like sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, am I doing a good enough job? Like as mothers, we all like, we just do that. And so what I have learned is that I have to cultivate traditions in my home and for my life. And so for 2024, something that I'm going to do, and I want everybody to do it with me, we should have a girls' night and do this together, but we should have a power hour. Like, let's make vision boards. Like, let's really forecast what we want for our good life going into 2024. Get a bunch of magazines, and go start cutting things up and let's go old school with it and create a vision board. Mind, body, spirit, health, wellness, what's important to you, and really hang that up somewhere that you're going to be able to go back to it and look at it several times. And then based off that vision board, start making little steps like you're saying, like let's make some let's start some traditions. I love a weekly family night. It seems easier said than done when life starts picking up and you get busy. And as you know, when you work for yourself, you're just lucky if you even make dinner some nights and you're not ordering takeout all the time. So I know that if I don't plant that seed and say like, we're having family nights every Thursday night, we're all meeting here and we're going to figure out what we're going to do. But every Thursday night is a family night in my home. That is a tradition that my kids are going to be able to hopefully then pass down to their kids. And so I think our generation, we're learning from our parents, and our parents really were just all trying to make ends meet. And for my parents, it was survival mode, and so for us now, I think that what we want to do, our generation, it's more about like, let's not make some mistakes in the past that we've seen. Like, let's really be more intentional. Let's not be the generation of distraction. Like, let's actually go back to building blocks and being more handsy with our hand and just putting pen to paper, making scrapbooks. Like, let's vision past for 2024 and start there. And then start making some traditions along the way and really sticking to it. Those are the steps. Those are the things. Weekly dates with your friends, texting friends every week, praying for friends every week, showing up for those who are in your life. Because it's not just about you. Good life is also about gathering and reaching for others and helping others and vice versa. So I think it's important that we really sit with ourselves and dream big about the life that you want to have, but also just love the life that God has given you today. Something we all need to do, myself included.
I love it so much. I am so glad that we got to talk today. I feel like cut from the same cloth. And I'm so excited about all of your work. I'm so excited about your book. We're going to link to it in the show notes. You guys go pick up a copy. And really, Sazan, I'm so glad that we're friends.
I am too. I feel like you are just the blonde version. I mean, I wish I could be a blonde someday. I mean, blondes have fun. I've always wanted to go blonde, but my eyebrows are too dark. My Middle Eastern skin is like, girl, that ain't gonna work for me. But you're beautiful on the inside and out, Stephanie. I love that we've gotten to connect and chat. And Girls Night, gang, this has been fun, y'all. Like, thanks for having me, y'all.
Thanks for being here.